Hi, Year 10. So this video lesson, we are going to look at natural and manufactured timbers, the second part of our material categories theory section. So can you turn to this page in your booklet and write down the learning objective, which is I will learn how we categorize wood to understand their working properties. Fantastic. So on this page, you are going to probably need two natural timbers, and the bottom half we're going to use for manufactured boards. So, acquired directly from trees. So we get directly from cutting down a tree and cutting it into planks. There we go. We've got natural. Softwoods come from coniferous trees, and hardwoods come from deciduous trees. I'll explain this in a little bit more detail in one moment. But the point is that not all timber that we use is 100% natural. Natural timbers, debark it, and then we cut the tree trunk into different planks. Is when we take the offcuts and the waste from cutting the trees down into planks, create a different type of timber, which is not 100% natural. It's a manufactured timber. But anyway, part is natural timbers. So we have got softwoods. These come from coniferous trees. Coniferous trees, needles or pines that, like Christmas trees, they do not drop their leaves in autumn. This means sunlight all year round into energy, into food, which helps them grow all year round. Properties for softwoods. So as I said, they normally have pines or needles. They often have pine cones as well, than hardwoods. So if you plant a softwood and a hardwood right next to each other, a metre apart, and that is because what I said earlier about the fact that they're holding on to their pines and needles, they can, whereas hardwoods, they drop their leaves, so they can't do that during the autumn and winter months. Softwoods are also cheaper than the growth rate of softwoods, because we can grow them and things that are easier to get most of the time are cheaper than their counterparts, which are harder to obtain. Softwoods are generally cheaper than hardwoods, and they are seen as the most sustainable. All timber is renewable, because we can plant trees and regrow. Degrees of sustainability, and softwoods are the most sustainable because they can be replaced quicker due to that fast. So pause the video here and make sure you've got that information before moving on. Pause for softwoods. We're just going to go through some which you need to know and remember. So pine, larch, the technical name for a Christmas tree, spruce, cedar, and redwood. These are all examples, but yeah, I'm sure you would have heard of a couple of them, maybe pine, cedar, maybe spruce. Fantastic. Come from deciduous trees. So deciduous trees are trees that drop their leaves in autumn. So they're normally quite flat, and in autumn they start going orangey and then brown, and they drop, and then over the winter months cannot grow as much during the winter months because they're only relying on the nutrients and water from the soil. They can't get any. So the properties for hardwoods, on the whole, they're normally the opposite. So the first one, hardwoods have wide and broad leaves compared to those pines and needles are softer and bigger, and the widest amount of space that a leaf takes up, the more amount of energy it can absorb from the sun. So these take forever to grow to maturity. So when I say maturity, in terms of a lumber merchant, to be able to cut down a tree to get enough planks out of it to be worth the money, and to get tall enough to have a thick enough trunk to cut down into different planks, compared to softwoods where they can do what type of planks you're going to cut out. And because it takes this long to grow, it makes and also less sustainable because it takes longer to replace them, even though you renew it by planting it and growing it. It's still less sustainable than softwoods because it takes a lot longer to grow. 9 times out of 10, hardwoods are much more durable than softwoods, so they can take a lot more bit of battering before they break compared to softwoods. And then onto the example oak, I'm sure you've heard of, mahogany as well. And then the rest you may or may not have heard of. We've got ash, walnut, beech, and balsa. Pause the video here. Make sure you've got all of those notes, and then we're going to move on to the manufactured boards. Fantastic. So manufactured boards, we've got 3. Remind you that manufactured boards are made from the waste material of created from cutting. That stuff is not just thrown away, it is used and mixed with different materials to create manufactured boards. So this is made from the smallest particles of waste from kind of mixes it with a resin, a type of glue. They pour it into huge sheets, and then they slowly evaporate heavy manufactured board. Because it's sawdust, it doesn't actually have a grain, so it's a lot easier to cut and it's a lot smoother. However, the equivalent to a sponge in the timber world. So any water, it will any wet conditions inside inside houses, so nowhere near showers or bathrooms, deteriorate. And examples of use for these ones, often used for laminate it. So laminating is a process where you cover the timber in a stick coating that makes it look like marble, that makes it look like stone, that makes it look like granite, or you can even put a veneer onto it to make it look like it's solid oak or solid pine, but at a fraction of the cost. Plywood. So plywood is very strong. This is because it's made of lots of different layers, big sheets that are quite thin, and on each layer the direction of the wood grain changes degrees. So each layer the wood grain is pointing in a different direction. This eliminates of plywood. That makes it insanely strong compared to most other timbers, and price go up because it's so much more useful. It's also very easy to cut and finish, and it can be, because it's a natural timber, it does not absorb the water as liquids as easily, so because it's made up of those individual layers. Examples of uses for plywood, often used for shelving, construction and furniture. So but construction, furniture and shelving are like the main ones that you will see. And our final one is chips. It's made from wood chips compacted together, mixed with a resin, a type of adhesive, a type of glue into it. So, properties of this is compacted wood chips that are glued together. It's hard to finish. What that means, it's hard to make it look nice after you've cut it, because with medium wood, this one doesn't have any grain, so it's super easy to cut. This one is just like a natural timber, so you can still sand it away to get chopping through it with a saw or with a circular saw or mechanical saw, whatever you're using. The teeth of it will rip away the rest of the wood chips left and right of the cut, so you're left with all of these loads of really deep laceration grooves from those wood chips being pulled out by the teeth. It's also very strong, but similar extent to MDF, not as drastically, but it does absorb water, so it's not ideal for use outside. Veneered, they can be veneered with a plastic or a natural timber flooring, and flat pack furniture, so chipboard. Its biggest use is in industrial flooring and flat pack furniture. Flat pack furniture, because chest of drawers that you put together yourself. About 70% of the material won't ever be seen, so they make it out of chipboard because it doesn't need to look nice. The sides and the drawer fronts will be made out of chipboard, but veneered, an oak veneer or pine veneer to make it look like solid natural timber. They do this because chipboard's very strong. IKEA made a chest of drawers out of chipboard with a veneer on it to make it look like natural timber. That would be probably about 80% price would have to change, and less people would buy the more expensive one and more people would buy the cheaper one made out of chipboard. To gather in one video, but please make sure that you have got all of the notes down in your theory book